Welcome to Book Solve and Book 7 in the 100 Great Reads series. And this time we're featuring Canadian author Margaret Atwood, who is definitely one of my this early go-to authors that I knew that I could pick up one of her books and have a great time reading it when I was first begun to read literary novels. And I've read many of her novels, and Alias Grace remains my absolute favourite. Despite the attractions of The Blind Assassin and the ubiquitous popular enthusiasm and praise for The Handmaid's Tale, I shan't be picking up the sequel, The Testaments. But that's really a story for another video. In my opinion, a reader's demand to know what happened next at the end of a novel is a confession that they didn't really understand the book. And an author being eventually persuaded to write a what happened next novel, follow-up novel, to me, I'm sorry, but it feels to me like a violation and betrayal of the original book. It might be commercially successful and it might be really wanted by readers or the publishing house, but sorry, that's what I feel. Anyway, I haven't picked The Handmaid's Tale, so that's enough of that subject for now. Alias Grace was published in 1996. It's a historical fiction based on the real life murders in 1843 of Thomas Kinnear and his housekeeper Nancy Montgomery in Canada West, which is now, of course, territory of Ontario, focusing primarily on Grace Marks, who was convicted of the crime. And the novel blends fact or fiction, exploring the nature of memory and guilt and societal attitudes towards women. I do have a penchant for the retelling of true events in fiction, and I always find that the stories are always intriguingly woven towards the purpose of the author. That's a great thing. So, In Cold Blood, The Executioner's Song, The Last King of Scotland, Wolf Hall are all among my favourite books. And as a trivial aside, I do so love the cover of this vintage paperback edition. And to me, a striking cover is always the cherry on the top of a loved book. Anyway, Margaret Atwood has often spoken about the writing of this novel. And, I've got a quote here. She said that the idea of truth and how it's shaped, distorted or erased by the passage of time really interested me. And accepting this hypothesis, then it frees the writer to explore and manipulate the perceived and accepted truth of the affair or whatever subject they're writing about, real event. Because the truth is neither a proven nor objective one. Or the accepted truth. And of course, in doing so, you're also examining what is the actual meaning of truth. What is truth in historical events? And the ambiguity lying behind Grace Marks' conviction is examined psychologically in the novel through exploration of unreliable accounts by witnesses of the trauma and the repressed memories of those that were involved in the tragedy. So the novel has got very much the feeling of a literary murder mystery or a thriller, without all the trite tropes and wearying predictability of less sophisticated works in that genre. Margaret also wanted to explore the way women were perceived and treated in the 19th century, especially those involved in crime. And Grace was alternately portrayed in the press as a monster, as a seductress, but also as a meek, manipulated servant girl. And these contradictory portrayals fascinated Margaret Atwood as examples of how women's roles and stories are shaped by others, and specifically in that patriarchal society by men, which is something that's still prevalent today, is it not? Oops, just get my next page of notes out. In an afterword to the novel, Margaret Atwood writes this: "The historical facts of the case are recorded in numerous sources, which are listed at the end of the book. Where there are gaps in the records, I've felt free to invent. The accounts of the murders given by Grace at the end of the book is a combination of her own words and those of others. The epilogue is fictional. It's not the purpose of this book to solve the mystery of what Grace did or did not do. The novel has to do with the way in which the story is told, and the ways in which we have come to decide what we believe about other people and about ourselves." Yeah, I just found Alias, Grace to be a hugely arresting and intriguing read, and it remains one of my most favourite books. So I'll give you a few extracts to give you a taste of the narrative. This is Grace musing early in the book on her fate, and her tone's thoughtful, but laced with tension and ambiguity. "When you are in the middle of a story, it isn't a story at all, but only a confusion, a dark roaring, a blindness, a wreckage of shattered glass and splintered wood. It's only afterwards that it becomes anything like a story at all. When you are telling it to yourself or to someone else." That's what I should do in the cellar. I should make a story of it. It will have a beginning and a middle and an end, and although there may be some false starts and some dead ends, and where the end is up to God. But for now, it's just something that happened, and it begins where they brought me in chains, and put me in this prison cell. And that little extract, I think, puts me so much in mind of a Kierkegaard quote, which is, again, one of my favourite quotes, I guess, really. "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." In other words, we only can, and we only do put meaning into things that happen to us later on, when they've happened, when they've bloomed out into consequences. And we recognise in that little extract that Margaret Atwood's made Grace not just tell the story, but shape it, choosing what to reveal and what to withhold, both to the reader and, as she herself admits, Ruby admits there, Grace, admits there, to herself. And Grace's psychological state deteriorates during her time in incarceration, and this is an extract from later in the novel. "I do not know what the future holds for me. There are days when I think I shall be free soon, and days when I'm sure that I never shall be. Dr. Jordan comes and goes, but the cell remains the same, cold and unforgiving, and I am aware that his interests may not be enough to change my fate. Sometimes I wonder if the man who holds my life in his hands truly understands me, or if he only sees the surface, my youth, my quiet manners, my willingness to comply. There is so much beneath that surface, hidden even from me, a darkness I cannot name. The memories come unbidden at times, like shadows flickering at the edge of the candlelight, elusive and threatening. I try to catch them, to hold them, but they slip away, leaving only a sense of something terrible, something I may never fully grasp. And yet, I tell my stories, layer upon layer, weaving truth and fiction until even I'm unsure where one ends and another begins. Is it fear that drives me, or survival? Or perhaps a hope that by telling, I might find freedom, not just of body, but of mind. The past is a prison as real as these walls, and I am both a prisoner and warden. Yeah, another great piece of writing there, and very one that provokes a lot of thought. Alias Grace is a more complex, intriguing, and adventurous novel than the previous choice of Behind the Scenes at a Museum, and one perhaps that leads to a larger number of questions in the reader that might lead on to further investigation of what's been written about the case in this particular instance. And I do think that that's an important virtue in a novel. When we finally finish a novel, do we just put it down and muse for a while on the story and the pleasure that reading it gave us? Or do we place it aside with a number of burning questions in our head? I don't know. Both happens. And it's a great virtue when it's the latter of those two responses to finishing a particular novel. Anyway, that's the end of my little review of Alias Grace, Book 7 in our series of 100 Great Reads. So I shall say goodbye from Booksolve, and happy reading to you all. Bye-bye.